and welcome to Freshly Served, the healthy vegan cooking show. I'm Heather, and tonight we are making shepherd's pie. Now, obviously, traditional shepherd's pie is with lamb, and a lot of people, when they make a vegetarian or a vegan shepherd's pie, are going to call it something like friendly pie or something like that. I stick with shepherd's pie because, you know what? I figure that shepherds probably didn't eat lamb every night. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had any sheep left, right? So, shepherd's pie is basically some, well, say ground lamb with a bit of vegetable, onion and carrot, and some seasoning, topped with mashed potatoes and then baked, which is an excellent meal for a winter night. Keeps you really nice and warm, very filling. Lentils, of course, have lots of protein. They also have calcium in them, and it really is just a very yummy dinner. So, what we're going to start with is I've got my lentils cooked on the back here, and all I did with them was I took 1 cup of lentils and I think I put 2 cups of water in there and then boiled them, turn them down, simmer. They take about half an hour. They're a fairly fast cooking one, so 20 minutes to half an hour, you should be good. I've also got my potatoes cooked here, and what you're looking for with your potato is you want to make some small chunks. That size is what I find perfect, because if you make them bigger, they're going to take longer to cook, but if you make them smaller, then they really fall apart. And although we're making mashed potatoes, I don't know, I just like to keep my potatoes solid. So you cover them with enough water just to cover the potatoes, boil them until they're soft. You tell that by sticking a fork in them. And then what I do is I drain them off, but leave about half a cup of the cooking liquid, because when you boil any vegetable, some of their nutrients are going to leach out into the water. So if you keep some of that water, you're going to keep some of the nutrients. And a lot of people will do this with, like, say if it's non-vegan, you're going to use butter and milk, right? I find mashed potatoes just fine with no milk and no butter. If you want to do a vegan version, you could use coconut oil if you want some fat. I don't find it necessary, to be honest. And you could also use rice milk or some other type of non-dairy milk, and you'll be just fine. So what I've got going here is I'm just mashing them with my masher. If you want a really smooth potato, you could use the beaters or a hand blender. Makes a really creamy, fluffy potato. But for this, I kind of want a little bit of chunkiness. I've also left the skins in my potato because a lot of the nutrition in a vegetable is in its skin, and potato is no exception. So if you leave the skins on them, it also adds a bit of color, but primarily it adds nutrients. And I haven't left quite enough of the cooking liquid for these potatoes in here, so I'm just going to add a bit more water. When you're draining them, if you drain them into a little bowl, that would probably be even better. And then if you need more liquid, you can add it back. And the reason people add butter and milk to mashed potatoes is to make them creamy. But I find that the potatoes themselves are creamy, and I really don't feel a need to add any additional fat to them. So, once you've got them mashed up, what you want to do is season them. And I boil the potatoes with a little bit of salt in the water just to help them cook. But what you can add now is just a touch of salt. And I think I'll do some ground pepper. Just a bit. If you want to add other flavors here, you could maybe put some dill, although that's going to take away from the flavor of the shepherd's pie tonight. But if you're making just mashed potatoes, you can add all kinds of flavorings to them. Thyme is the flavoring that's going into the dish portion, like the lentils. So if you wanted to add a seasoning to the potatoes, you could add thyme. But traditional shepherd's pie, doesn't have any seasoning in the potatoes. Once you've got them mashed up, you can just set them aside, let them cool off a bit. We'll move on to the lentils. So the lentils are fully cooked when they start to soften up, and you can see some of them are starting to break out of their skin here, and that's perfect. So they are fairly quick cooking, but with lentils and any type of bean, you want to make sure that when you boil them, you do not use any salt because it will stop them from cooking properly. So these guys, I cooked with just water and no salt. Now I like to conserve dishes whenever I can. Now if there's any liquid left at the bottom, like there's a little bit of liquid here, that's okay. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna use this pot that I've cooked the lentils in to saute the vegetables that are gonna go in the base. And then rather than putting this in a bowl, what I'm gonna do is put it in the pie dish that I'm using for the whole thing. That way I'm reusing the pot and I've got them right in the pie dish, so I don't need to waste a bowl mixing stuff up. I can just mix it up in the pie dish and then spread the potatoes on top. All right, so moving on, we're going to get our vegetables going. So I'm going to turn this pot here onto medium. And once it's heated up, I'll add a bit of olive oil. And then get the onion sauteing. And I used a fairly small pot for the lentils, so it's kind of small for the mass amounts of onion that I have here. You probably don't need this much onion, and if you use a larger pot, it might be better. But anyway, we'll work with it. So just toss those onions around in the oil. This whole dish is going into the oven, so these onions are going to get a chance to cook other than here. But we're just going to saute them briefly so that they crisp up a little bit and they keep their flavor. And at this point I can get the oven going to preheat it. So I'm going to put it on to 350. It's not crucial what temperature you use here. Anywhere from 300 to 400 is fine. At 300, it's going to be a slower bake, so things have more of a chance to dry out. At 400, it's going to be a faster bake, so it'll take less time, but things are going to get a little bit crispy on top because it's hotter. Go figure. Alright, so leave these onions for a few minutes, let them soften up, and then we'll add the carrots in there. So while they're cooking, you could be dicing up your carrots. Once those onions have softened up, it's time to add the carrots. And we do the vegetables separately before we add them to the pie, because otherwise they'll lose all of their flavor into the pie. Whereas if we saute them first, they maintain their own flavors and then blend together, rather than just leaching all their flavors onto each other. You want the flavor of the carrot and the flavor of the onion, not the flavor of caronion. Right? I don't know. Okay, so give that a stir, let the carrots have a few minutes on the heat. You'll start to smell some carrot flavor coming off them. They'll be a little bit soft, and then we'll be ready to add seasonings.